Live now. Okay, Bill, over to you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about how to start a business, what the challenges are, and how at 12 Ronnies we have some great resources to help you to do that. So, with me today, I've got Simon Crispin, I've got Christopher Norris. Thank you so much for joining us today. And
Pleasure.
if you've got questions, for those of you that are tuning in, please put them in the chat in LinkedIn, and we'll take those questions as we go. But maybe today we'll start out with a few questions, so while people are thinking about it. One thing I like to talk about a lot is failure. So maybe Chris, we'll start with you. What think about what is your greatest failure?
Well,
and why was it so great?
One particular startup that failed that I was involved with was a recommendation engine for people who wanted to find out what novel they wanted to read next, a thing called StoryCode. And it was brilliant. But unfortunately, we couldn't get the investment. So that our techie guy decided he needed to get a job. So that was the end of that. But yeah, it's still something that I think I would revive if I had the money to, because it was a really good idea. We even went on Dragon's Den, the Shark Tank of the UK. So yeah, but nobody gave us any money. So there we go.
Simon, how about you?
Oh my gosh, where do I start with my failures? I mean, it's.
How about to narrow it down? How about the one that you learned the most from?
Yeah. Okay. One that stands out I learned a lot from was me thinking I had a really, really good idea and it couldn't fail. that was my starting point of this can't fail. I'd recently sold a business. This was back in the early noughties, around the year 2000, and sold a business, and I had this new thing called the internet was all going and up and running, and email was around, but it was all fairly new. And I came up with this brilliant idea that you could probably merge what was happening with email in this World Wide Web thing into having marketing emails that could have HTML in them. And I thought, well, where better to really promote this and get going on this idea than San Francisco. It seemed like an adventure. That was the epicenter of what was happening with this new thing called the internet. And so I sold up a lot of things, went out to pack my bags, flew over to San Francisco, set up, started speaking to people about this, and found out that over there, this is nothing new. This is what they were already doing. My brilliant idea that I'd spent money and time and life change for should have been really researched a little bit more. So my greatest failure taught me a lot about research, and no great idea is a great idea until you start researching and doing something about it.
Well, I think there's a great segue there then, into research and the kind of research that you do as you're trying to understand whether or not you have a great idea or not. So, Chris, what kind of research do you do that's really effective for you? What are your favorites? What the methods and why they work for you?
I think the important thing, you need to validate whether there's a market. So you need to find out whether you've got any customers. That's the basic. But also, where your niche is within the marketplace. So, for example, I've got decades of experience of working in book publishing. So, if I had an idea for a business that I wanted to launch that was involving people in that marketplace, then I would see whether there were any direct competitors that were dealing with those ideal customers, if you like. So, because my experience has been that even if you're dealing with multinational companies who've got incredible solutions for problems, that actually there's lots of crumbs that can fall from the table in regional areas or different countries because they understand the culture of the people that live there. So you need to understand whether or not there's a niche that you can live in.
Great. And Simon, how about you?
Yeah, following on from Chris, I mean, Something I'm doing at the moment with 12 Ronnies, which we are we haven't launched, but we're in the process of putting together, called Launch Plan, and it's all about helping. So we've done some research. Okay, so the initial research is that one of the big struggles for founders when launching a business is planning it properly, is knowing what the real costs are going to be, where to find the help and the service providers, and putting together a strategic plan. So we focused on that as a product, and so we've done some research that there's a problem there, and really have started to put together what we call a prototype. So we haven't built a MVP yet. There's our launch plan, but we've imagined what it would be, and we've put together some, let's call it, marketing material to get some feedback. So it's all about a sort of a feedback loop from people, but our audience aren't really reacting to it. They're not at the moment from our marketing materials. That, surprisingly, from our earlier research saying this was something important and it was a problem, we're not getting people to jump into filling in questionnaires and doing more and getting more involved. So we're stepping back into this, what I would call, and probably you would call, Bill, the customer discovery phase again, and just making sure, well, let's sense check what we're doing, and is this really what customers want? It's one thing being told that, but our data is indicating no interest. And what is the reason for that? Have we got the wrong audience? Are we not communicating it properly? There's lots involved in here. So it's quite interesting that while we're helping people launch businesses, we're launching a new product that we're having to use all the techniques we're showing people in terms of customer discovery. So it's yeah, that's the research part that I'm involved in at the moment.
Well, thank you. We got a question from Craig Campbell that might be a little bit related to this this last question. If you had some new software that people are not looking for, how would you get the message out there? He said it's digital operation software taking paper out of the business. So, Simon, you're talking about, well, we had some, we believe we had some evidence that people were looking for this type of help that we're looking to do at 12 Ronnies. But in this case here, he's saying, I know people aren't looking for this, but I assume he believes that it's still a very valuable thing to people if they could experience it. So, Simon, how would you go about getting the word out about something that maybe tackles a problem that people aren't necessarily perceiving?
Yeah, it's in my experience of working with founders, it's not just about the solution or what it's solving, but it also involves who it's for, the customer segment or the audience you're targeting. So what solves a problem for one customer segment isn't a problem for another. So let's an example, not a software example, but an obvious example. I probably wouldn't be receptive to messages about female hair products. Given my hairstyle, I wouldn't be a customer segment for those. So it's an extreme example, but it is about audiences and customer segments. So if you've got some new software that and you're finding people aren't looking for it, well, which audiences are looking for it is what you're looking for, if any. And it might be that your software is quite a niche, and it's understanding it is that customer discovery of what niche would be possibly using that software. So that's it's the hard part of finding those customer segments. But as soon as you find one or two, then customers, then it gets really interesting. If you can have customer interviews, if you can then start to speak to them and understand in a way how they're in their job, in what they're doing related to this field, what do they do every day? What are the problems? So you're not really focusing on the piece of software or itself. You're focusing on what their challenges are every day, and then you might be able to pick up some tips about where it fits in.
Thank you, Chris. You want to embellish on that?
Yes, please. Yeah, I've actually got some experience of how people can sell software to people that are clients. Essentially, what you're talking about is the interface of a discipline called analyst relations. And there's an international trade association called the IIAR, which is the Institute for Influencer and Analyst Relations. And they've got loads and loads of information on there that you could check out. Essentially, what happens is that the people who are using a software product don't necessarily understand anything about software. They're just people who make decisions about whether to buy the product. So what you need to do is to talk to people who understand the technology and the software, who can talk to other people in the organization you want to sell to, who also understand technology and software, who can then escalate it up to the decision makers, who can then make a decision about whether they want it or not. So there's a whole ecosystem that's in place if you want to sell software to clients. So you just need to get into that environment where you're talking to people who can then sell the thing on your behalf.
Yeah, and as Craig is following up on his question there, I think that fits kind of what he's talking about. You know, he understands the market he's in, so he's going to need to find those people within those markets,
yes,
who are having the problem, who make the decision, who are willing to try the software, even if it doesn't necessarily save the problem.
Yeah, because the people in the C-level won't necessarily understand that it's only the people lower down who are the techies that will understand what the problem is. Yeah, sorry, Simon.
And to follow on, Craig, with what sort of mentioned there is, sometimes you have to educate a market or educate an audience or educate a customer segment to be, if this is quite new to them, about why it's important in the problems that they're experiencing every day with what they're doing. And there's a certain level of education involved with new products to market. It's a really good thing if there is a competing product. I know everybody says mine's unique, but most customers are solving their problems in one way or another, and you're just hopefully finding a better, cheaper, faster way, or a combination of those in which to solve those problems. And if there is competition, it's so much easier to educate them by saying, it's like this, but this is how we're different, or this is how we're doing it, or just another angle on it. So I love competition, but I know a lot of people say that, well, there's no competition for my products.
I think in particular from what Craig's saying with his follow-up is that there will be in the education market, the higher education and secondary education, there will be the people who are making decisions about whether to buy a product aren't necessarily, they're just going to be paper pushers and managers and things. They're not going to be necessarily people who understand your software. But there will be people within those organizations that understand, technology and software. So that you need to try and find those people, and then they can scale up the conversation.
And it always starts with one. Can you find one person who's willing to try your product?
Exactly.
For free, give it away the first time, and see if it actually does what it does. And then, and if you can find someone who is an influencer, I think both of you were kind of talking about that, someone who's an influencer in that area, someone who's at a bigger university or a higher up person, that'd be great too. So.
And then run a pilot. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, case studies are so powerful. It's and to your point about running it for free, it's not really for free. You're investing your time and asking them to invest their time into producing a case study. They're never really for free if you're asking people to go and use what you're doing and properly use it. Their time isn't free.
And everybody's waiting on there being some data that they can actually base their decisions on. So if you're running a pilot, you're actually getting some proper information that will be valuable when you're talking to potential clients.
And to maybe continue on that line of thinking, as you're working with customers and developing your product, maybe each of you could kind of share an important pivot that you made one time, one or more times, based on that customer feedback, where you were surprised that you're going this new direction, but you were glad because it came from the customer.
Okay, I'll start there because it's something that's quite pertinent in the UK and Europe at the moment with one of my favorite sports that you call soccer, Bill, and we call football over here. And back a couple of decades ago, when I'd got over my San Francisco experience, but still liked email marketing, and I've got my tail between my legs, and I'm back here. I was looking at launching an email, not all web-based and all of that, but an email system for football clubs, for soccer clubs, because one of the World Cups was coming up, and it was all about recruiting new fans. And again, I thought it was a great idea. I went to speak to them, and it was one of the football clubs that pointed out to me something that was really obvious I should have known in the UK, because I'm a football fan. And they said, this marketing manager said to me, I don't think this is going to work, and it wouldn't be applicable to us to send out to a large email list to try and recruit new fans, because people gravitate to supporting your football team for one of three reasons. One, a significant member of your family, your father maybe is a supporter of a particular club, and you follow in the family tradition. Two, it's a local club, so you're supporting a local team, and it's doing really well. Or three, it's the team that's winning everything at the moment, so you're into that. And outside of those three factors, you don't really end up supporting a new club. So just marketing out. So I realized, okay, well, let's pivot to, instead of looking at new recruitment, let's use this as a communication system with existing fans. And so the pivot worked quite well. It was a new communication system at the time, but aimed at existing fans only, not recruitment of new fans. So that's my example of a pivot.
Chris?
Yeah, well, my example is still in progress, really. I have a oh, thanks, Craig, for your extra comment. We'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, my example, I run a social enterprise that promotes the Icelandic tradition of Jólabókaflóð, which is a tradition they've had for many years, which encourages people to buy each other books as Christmas presents. And I won't get into the big detail about it because it would take too long. But essentially, there is a catalogue that gets produced that gets sent to everybody in the country that tells them about all the books that are being published in the Icelandic language that year. There's always about 800 a year. And so what I wanted to do with my company is to replicate that experience by having an online catalogue that is categorized in the same way as the Icelandic catalogue. And initially, what I wanted to do when Simon and I were involved much more closely with crowdfunding is I wanted to charge people for that opportunity to promote books that they were interested in and make recommendations that I would then feature in the catalogue. And it was pretty clear that that doesn't really work. So what I need to do, and what I'm going to do this year, is to run it again, but offer recommendations for free, and then hopefully make some money off the back end through affiliate links through to different bookshops. So actually, what I need is volume in terms of the books that people are recommending, and then when I put the link on the website, then it's actually an affiliate link that I can hide that it's an affiliate link. Sure. By having there's a special, I can't remember the word for it, but there's a special kind of link that you can generate, so it doesn't look like an affiliate link, but it is an affiliate link. So I can actually make some money off the back end that way rather than doing it through crowdfunding.
Cool. Maybe kind of a segue into some more of the 12 Ronnie's opportunities. who are your sort of go-to people or resources when you're running into problems, you're running into challenges? Simon, go ahead.
Yeah. So, do you mean when I'm launching this launch or looking at this launch plan thing? Who do I go to?
Yeah.
The
Who mentors the mentor?
Yeah. Well, it's the nice thing about mentoring in itself is there's so many different ways to do mentorship, and you can have a hierarchy. So you can so a lot of people view mentoring as old person mentors young person, experience mentors inexperience. But there's also a lot of what's called peer-to-peer mentoring, where there's people in the same let's say same space as you, doing the same thing, maybe launching a business, and want to be able to share tips and ideas or experiences. And so you're ending up helping mentor them, and they're helping mentor you. And that's the type I'm working with at the moment with 12 Ronnies. So I'm working with other mentors to and the nice thing about working in communities, and something that's quite important, is the best way to get help is to offer it first. So reaching out and saying, can I help anybody? Is anybody struggling with their business launches? Is there any way I can help? And reaching out to the mentors there, and then asking them, this is what I'm doing, any thoughts, any advice, can anybody help me, is a nicer approach than just take, ask. So yeah, we have a whole ecosystem of mentors. And so if you're a mentor, take that approach. If you're inexperienced, see how you can help people, and ask the mentors for help.
Yeah, I mean, I'd add that if you're, for example, in Craig's situation where you're an entrepreneur launching something new, and even if you're, say, Richard Branson at the top of Virgin, or any other multinational, Elon Musk or Bill Gates or anybody else like that, you need people around you to keep you honest. So you need trusted friends, trusted people that can tell you what's actually going on and not being yes people. So you and these people, in terms of mentoring, it's more of a case of helping you to see the wood from the trees, keeping your feet on the ground, not letting you get sucked into your own bubble too much, and have a certain authenticity and relationship with you so that they can actually tell you stuff to stop you making mistakes. And even the most successful people have got a bunch of, say, up to half a dozen people that they can phone and chat things through and just get some feedback on things.
Can you think about a time when you got some feedback that maybe hurt, but was the right thing to hear, either from a customer, from a mentor, or and how you got that feedback?
I guess I've got better at that, because I guess with the area that I've had most of my career in has been like writing things and editing things and whatever, and so you can get quite attached to the things that you write. And over time, I've got better at hearing when people think that things don't work, or something needs reworking, or whatever. And sometimes things are too long and need I mean, I have my habit when I'm writing things is perhaps to be to write a bit too much. So shortening things is often the right thing to do.
Simon?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, and important, because when people ask for feedback, they often term it in a way that they're really after compliments. They're not really after feedback. They're really after somebody saying, that's a really great idea. And if I'm honest, that's the worst feedback you can get. It's almost better not to give that, because you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't think it was a good idea. Generally, most people wouldn't. So the best feedback you can ask for is critical feedback. People don't want to hurt your feelings, but if you can find a way of breaking that barrier down, that they can be honest with you, then that's much better feedback. We have a feedback product in 12 Ronnies called Ideas Nest, where you list your business idea. It's a pre-constructed form where you fill in certain questions that doesn't give away the intellectual property of the idea, how it works, but much more who's it aimed at and what is the idea in essence, without saying how it works. And the whole idea is to share it with people for feedback, for honest feedback. And when we see feedback, this is a great idea, you want that expanded on why is it a good idea, and who is it a good idea for, and what's it. Just simple top line feedback needs to be delved into. And I personally find negative feedback more useful than positive feedback.
I've recently come across a new kind of coaching model called clean language. I don't know whether you've come across that, where essentially it's pretty much what you just said, Simon. So somebody says something, and then the coach will say, well, why do you think that? What aspect of that makes you say that? And then you're drilling down all the time to try and help the person articulate what they actually mean in a more articulate way and in a more meaningful way.
And to add to that, Chris, I'm finding AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, really useful to generate negative feedback, because it's not bothered about my feelings.
Is that what you actually? Yeah.
So when I put something up there, I say, give me all the negatives. Why wouldn't this work? And no, it's brilliant, because it doesn't take into account my feelings, which is what you want when you're looking for for feedback.
Well, I think the point here is that we need to probably ask better feedback questions.
Yeah.
So what are those really great questions that help people to step away from the kindness that they want to give you, and to help them to actually be honest? What would be great kind of open-ended questions to ask of someone that you're looking for feedback?
Yeah, sorry, Chris. I'll just
no,
start.
You go ahead, Simon.
Sprung to mind, and it's sort of touched on it a little bit earlier. But I think it's really important when asking for feedback about something that you think they might be interested in, that's hopefully solving a problem for somebody, is to put them in a real situation to think about it. So when did you last try to do what did you last do on a Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock to do with this? Or grounding them in reality, not making people fantasize about what ifs, or if I did that. I think that's a stronger way of getting, if you like, real data feedback on something, if you can ground it in their own day-to-day reality.
Yeah, I would. My suggestion would be to frame your question that you want feedback on at a second degree level, as opposed to a direct level. So in other words, you're saying, here's a scenario where, my friend Michael has got this problem, and you go through the detail of what the problem might be. How would you suggest that Michael deals with it? So that you're not actually, so you're allowing people not to upset your feelings, because you're actually dealing with a third person, like in some kind of hypothetical situation. So that's a better way of maybe getting authentic advice or feedback from people, because they know that they're not likely to hurt your feelings.
That's great. And those are both great tactics. In the minute or so we have left, any final comments from either of you?
Not really, Bill. I think the essence of sort of these calls, and what I really like about the approach and the approach taken here, is we're discussing all the different parts of ideas, and building business ideas, and getting customer segments, and getting feedback, because at the end of it, a customer has to pay to keep you in business. And if we don't start with putting them at the forefront of our ideas, if we start with a product, it's very risky then, because then you've got to go and find customers for it.
Yeah, I just add a final point. Simon and I have got another product called 12-Hour Prizes, which is trying to generate solutions to problems that clients have, and then having a PR campaign associated with it.
Mhm.
And I ran a campaign a few years ago, which I'm again about to act on, where it came up with the best ideas for getting people to read for pleasure more than they did. And we had a bunch of ideas. And what I did is I didn't make the decision about what the best idea was. What I did is I engaged an international panel of experts who I sent the ideas to, and then I asked them to rank the ideas in the order that they felt was the best order. And then all I did was I added up the numbers from the rankings, so that if everybody had put something as number one, then that would have the lowest number, and one would be the best idea. So I'm actually getting some objectivity into the feedback as opposed to making the decisions myself.
And increasing the level of legitimacy of those.
Yeah, exactly. And also you're getting the feedback from different people with different perspectives, which is always a good idea.
Well, that's our time today. Thank you both so much for being here. Thank you to everyone that tuned in as well. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the same time next week. And we'll talk more about great ways to start a business.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.